We alluded to the concept of scope. This is a deeper dive. To complete the discussion on scope, there is a specific page inside your chapter. C++.com has a chapter on it as well. A scope is a region of the code. Broadly speaking, there are 4 or 5 different places where a variable could be declared. Global scope means something that is declared inside a global, having global visibility. Something that is declared inside local scope, having local visibility. Something that is declared inside a function, having functional visibility. Something that is declared right within the namespace, having namespace visibility, stuff like that. Variable that is declared inside a function or block is called local variable. If the function or any variable that is declared outside of the function in a global scope, even outside of the main, that's what we call global variable. Just by looking at this, we can see that x, which is declared outside of your function f, is what we call global variable. Inside the function, you can also have another variable by the same name. However, this x is not the same as this x because the second x is actually inside this functional scope. Any scope that we define, there is a pair of curly braces associated with it. There's also inside this function another scope. So you can use these curly braces to basically set up blocks. You can have another variable by the same name as well. This x is not the same as this second x. Definitely not the same as the first x. So when you do x equals 2 at the inner scope level, this is what we call block. You can have block inside a function and another block of code. This x refers to this local one. It's not the same as that one. When you do x equals 3 on the outside, this x points to this x on the outside, whereas this x points to this x on the outside. At no point in time where your x is referring to a global x, because your flow of control simply looks for the nearest declaration of this variable. This declaration of variable happens inside the block, so be it. That's the block variable that you are assigning a value to. This variable is the closest one to its declaration is inside this function. Then that functional variable, x sitting inside the function, is the one that you assign the value to. As soon as you exit outside of the block, this entire scope is gone. It becomes invisible again, meaning they're deallocated on a stack. This is a scoping definition. Let's look at what happens. Scope enables variable hiding. In other words, if you have something set in this fashion where you have this function having a local variable x, and on the outside there is an x. What if you want to set this x to be the global one and not the inner one? In that case, you have to include what's called the scoping operator, right? The scoping operator jumps to the nearest scope. So you can also have nested loop and stuff like that. But this scoping operator jumps to the nearest global that it could find, this x. By and large, it's not a good idea to name these things x. You want to be as descriptive as possible to make sure your naming conventions make sense. Having naming convention like this is good so you know what this is for versus having just a generic X, Y, Z, or A, B, and C. Okay, so hopefully this illustrates the usage of scope and what is correct, what is not from the best practices standpoint.